There is a growing mystery surrounding the death of wrestling icon Hulk Hogan, and it is far from over because now it's being reported that his widow may be about to file a medical malpractice lawsuit against the player she claims may be responsible for what happened to her husband. We are breaking down what this means, what we can expect, and also the latest news regarding Hulk Hogan's daughter's visit to view his body after some very public comments she made regarding this investigation. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. All right, we got to talk about what's happening with Hulk Hogan. So we did a previous sidebar on some of these strange happenings in the aftermath of the wrestling icon's death on July 24th at age 71. That even though after he reportedly stopped breathing in his Clearwater, Florida home, and the County Forensic Science Center said that his cause of death was determined to be from a heart attack, even though his manner of death was being ruled natural, according to the cremation summary approval report, and that he had atrial fibrillation and battled chronic lymphocytic leukemia, a type of cancer affecting white blood cells, there were a lot of questions surrounding his death and whether there is something more here. I mean, we got a statement from Clearwater PD the last time that we did a sidebar on this from Rob Shaw, the public information officer from the police department, that said in part, the Clearwater Police Department continues its investigation into the July 24th death of Terry Bollea, also known as Hulk Hogan. The unique nature of this case has required us to interview multiple witnesses and seek medical records from a variety of providers, and our detectives continue to do that. All of this takes time. Until the investigation is completed, no records related to the case, including body camera footage, can be released. But now we have major news, and it follows up what we covered in our previous episode regarding Hulk Hogan's widow, Sky Daly, who seemingly raised questions about what happened. It has been reported by the Daily Mail that she may now potentially file a medical malpractice lawsuit in connection with her husband's death. That it may be connected to neck surgery that Hulk Hogan underwent back in May. And she reported claims that his phrenic nerve was, quote, compromised during surgery, and that may have led to him suffering shortness of breath. She believes that, quote, definitely contributed to him dying 2 months later. In her exclusive interview with the Daily Mail, she says, "We are investigating for possible malpractice. If you have shortness of breath for a long time, that makes you very sick. It's not something that's alarming, sudden cause of death. It's something that wears on you, makes you weak." And TMZ has been reporting that sources who heard this 911 call that day that brought first responders to Hulk Hogan's house, they confirmed that Sky said, "My husband's not breathing, he just stopped breathing." So in other words, the call may not have been for, a heart attack, but that he just stopped breathing. And she added, "We've all known about it for a while. It's not brand new information. Everything about his neck surgery has been documented from when he was alive, so there's nothing that happened right before he passed." And actually, it's being reported, and this is something we discussed in our previous sidebar, that an occupational therapist who was present at Hulk Hogan's house in Clearwater, Florida, when he stopped breathing, this person apparently told cops on the scene that a surgeon, quote, severed Hulk Hogan's phrenic nerve during a recent surgery. And this is apparently according to a police report that TMZ says is on, quote, lockdown. Now, TMZ indicated that police had conversations about what this therapist allegedly told them, and that is captured on body cam. Again, that hasn't been released. And by the way, this nerve, according to the Cleveland Clinic, this nerve controls your diaphragm, and it is essential to your ability to breathe. So it's very important what we're talking about. According to TMZ, quote, "Our sources say Hulk did not have a chest-clenching episode before his passing. Rather, he merely stopped breathing. We're told it was his wife, Sky, who sounded the alarm when his breath halted, and that's when the 911 call was made." Now, the Daily Mail has reported that this therapist has been identified as Justin McCamey. This is who they're saying it is. And they also claim that he is trying to stay out of view right now, with his wife telling the outlet that he, quote, has gone away and things aren't good right now. Now, according to the Daily Mail, Sky apparently says that he spoke with police and that he got his information from medical records, with Sky saying it's nothing he saw with his own eyes. Okay. I want to get into this. I want to get into this potential lawsuit. And I also want to talk to you about an update regarding Brooke Hogan, because she has made some strong public comments regarding her father's death. But now we have learned that she has seen his body. So I want to get into all that. Let me bring on right now trial attorney Alea Roberts. Alea, so good to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time. Strategic to make this announcement about filing a lawsuit. Sometimes you just file the lawsuit and that's it. Why announce it?
I think this is one of those situations where, because there has been so much public scrutiny about what's going on, there's been so much confusion or questions about, was there malpractice? Was there foul play? I think that this might be Hulk Hogan's wife's way of essentially saying, hey, I'm doing something about it, right? Like I'm doing my best based off the information that I have. This is where I think we're going. So kind of like not to calm the noise, but to kind of give some streamlining as to all the speculation that's been going on around Hulk Hogan's death.
Now, she hasn't named the medical facility. She hasn't named the doctor or doctors involved. Why not?
Strategy. And it could also be because she doesn't know. Sometimes when you have a lawyer, you want to look at everybody from the nurses who were on staff that night to the physician's assistants to the surgeons. So there's a lot of people that may or may not be included in this lawsuit individually named, as well as the hospital. In the event that the hospital, we get into this thing about insurance, in the event of the hospital being like the individual that has most of the insurance for settlement purposes versus individual lawsuits against these specific doctors, PAs, and nurses, it comes down to a matter of where are the pockets, essentially, in order to settle this lawsuit. Sometimes it's with the hospital. Sometimes you might find more insurance somewhere else. So it could, again, also a strategy standpoint.
Talking lawsuits here, you know who are experts in litigation, by the way? Our sponsor, Morgan & Morgan. This is America's largest injury law firm. This is a firm with over 1,000 attorneys. You know why they have so many? Because they win a lot. They have recovered over $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients. Think about that. In fact, in the past few months, a client in Florida received $12 million after the insurance company offered just $350,000. Out in Pennsylvania, a client was awarded $26 million. That is 40 times the insurer's $650,000 offer. Another client in Pennsylvania received $29 million. That's after being offered only $500,000. And even if you think your case isn't worth, millions of dollars, why not start a claim and fight for what you deserve? Morgan & Morgan, they make it so simple. You can start a claim from your phone in just 8 clicks. So if you're injured, you can easily start a claim at forthepeople.com/LC Sidebar by clicking the link below or scanning the QR code on screen. Is it also because she's not sure that she actually wants to move forward with a lawsuit and she doesn't want to say anything that could maybe lead to a defamation action, right? Because here's one of the things she told the Daily Mail, that Hulk Hogan hasn't been cremated yet, that his embalmed body, that's the current state, that she says we will be cremating him shortly as we are wrapping up this medical investigation. She added, it's not like in the movies where you snap your fingers. It's very time consuming to call, sending in records requests, get approval, send in the death certificate to get information. We're currently in the investigatory process for possible malpractice. So is that what's going on too?
For sure. To the point of getting medical records, sometimes it takes a month, sometimes it takes 6. It depends on the hospital and how their medical records department works, as well as just trying to get as much information as possible. Sometimes when you go to the hospital, you'll get like a printout or discharge paperwork or a summary, right? And it's usually 6 or 7 pages. But when you have something like surgery, you want the entire medical record. So you want Hulk Hogan's medical records before the surgery, after the surgery, and any type of follow-up, any type of post-operative visits. So again, depending on the speed of the medical records facility at the hospital, even assuming that there is a rush put on it, it can take some time. And when I say time, I mean months.
What would a lawsuit look like here?
Well, when you have a medical malpractice action, you name the hospital or the facility in which the surgery was performed. A lot of people don't know this, but surgery isn't always performed at a hospital. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you have operative centers. So assuming this is performed at a hospital, you name the hospital. You name the surgeon that performed the surgery. You name the assistant surgeon who also assisted the surgeon on the surgery. You might also, if there's a physician's assistant, you might also name them in the lawsuit. You might also name the nurses. Sometimes the anesthesiologist is also included. What you're doing is you want to make sure that you cover every single base of every single person that was in that room. And it's the individuals that are named. Their job is to say, hey, I didn't do it. It wasn't me. But as the lawyer, as the plaintiff's attorney in this case, you want to make sure that you have named every single person that you possibly can so you don't leave any stone unturned.
But let me get this straight. They're basically saying, I mean, if this lawsuit moves forward, they are responsible for Hulk Hogan's death. Isn't there a causation issue? They're saying that that surgery caused his death months later. How do you prove that? How do you prove that causal link?
Well, that's also something that we have to explore, right? Sometimes if there's a break in causation, it's going to be very, very difficult. But I want to hear more from this occupational therapist because I think that he might have some information about this causal link because he was clearly treating Hulk Hogan in some capacity after the surgery, right? If it's a situation which is intervening, did the occupational therapist do some sort of exacerbation to the neck and the movements that might have worsened the condition that caused Hulk Hogan to stop breathing? Why is he no longer in the public eye, or why is he no longer answering questions or things like that? If there's a situation in which we had the surgery, I think I said this before, it wasn't quite a snip, but maybe a nick that over time, consistently with movements, consistently with exercise, it continued to worsen and worsen and then caused Hulk Hogan to stop breathing.
Do they have to have conversations establishing that they knew there was a problem after the surgery, that they were talking about this problem, they were talking about the nerve, that it was persistently bothering him? Like you said, it was creating an issue. Does it matter whether or not they get a medical, I mean, does it matter if they sought medical attention or advice regarding, you know, this allegedly severed nerve, why they didn't get it treated? I mean, I'm very curious to see what the conversations were between May and July, right?
Agreed. And sometimes, again, there's nerves, right? We don't always know what's going on as far as our nerves are concerned. Maybe it's just, oh, this feels a little uncomfortable. Something doesn't really feel right. And you go on about your day, right? And unfortunately, when you have a situation like this, like we said, it started in May, but it could have worsened slowly over time. It might not have been something so drastic as to on May 1st, I have the surgery, and May 2nd, I'm no longer breathing, right? As we know, sometimes medical situations take time. So in this situation where you have a surgery that may have been compromised, maybe it was one of those things that it could have been repaired. That's also something that could be explored if it would have been addressed sooner. So maybe if I'm the doctors, I'm going to say, well, if he would have told us, if there would have been a conversation, we could have went back in, we could have fixed it, and he would be here today. That's why we have medical experts, right? I think I talked about that before, how you have, like, you get the entire records as a plaintiff's attorney, and you go to your surgeon and say, hey, surgeon, look at these records and tell me what went wrong. Tell me where there was an opportunity to be corrected, and tell me where we fell below the standard of acceptable care in the medical field.
And a lot of this is based on discovery, right? So during that phase, you will have, let's say it's a medical facility, let's say it's the doctors, what have you, they will have to turn over information to SkySide. And the threat of that, the risk of that, doesn't that cause a lot of defendants to want to settle the case to make sure it doesn't go to trial? Does it make them want to settle this even before it gets to the discovery phase? But at this point, look, this is an allegation. It's not even a full-blown lawsuit. But I'm just thinking, I'm theorizing here, what discovery could mean in a case like this.
For sure. And just so we understand, the medical records are not something that you're expecting to, you can make a demand for it to the other side, but because Hulk Hogan's wife is his power of attorney, all she does is sign a HIPAA authorization, and any type of medical record regarding this surgery, pre and post follow-up, any type of treatment, that's all given to her, right? So what's good for discovery purposes from the other side is, I want to see the schedules. I want to see what time everybody came in to work that day. I want to see what time everybody left that day. I want to see who was in the room at that specific time. That's where we get discoverable information from. Because on your actual medical records, they might just have the surgeon and the assistant surgeon named, right? But when you start getting schedules from other individuals who might have been in the room that might have had some sort of influence, like an anesthesiologist, like an assistant PA. Maybe there was a first-year medical student in there that was using this surgery as his opportunity to learn. That's not going to be in the medical records, but it might come out in discovery.
And any text messages, right? Any emails, any communications between these medical professionals that may relate to this surgery.
For sure.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you about this. By the way, the occupational therapist, if that is true, that this occupational therapist is trying to stay under the radar and things are not great, what exactly does that tell you? Again, if that's true.
I think that he might know a little bit more than he's letting us know, right? I said this earlier. I thought that it was a little strange that he spoke to the police and automatically made these allegations. It could have been something as simple as he exacerbated or worsened a condition, and instead of blaming it on himself and taking accountability for himself, he points the finger at the medical professionals that performed the surgery, right? If you have a situation like that where it's like, oh no, it wasn't me, it was him. Because sometimes, not all the time, occupational therapists are either referred to by the surgeons or by the medical facility. So they kind of are all in the same, pot, for lack of a better term, of all working together to provide medical services to, in this case, Hulk Hogan. So if you have a situation which the occupational therapist either works with the surgeons or is affiliated with the hospital in any way, he's trying to make sure that his record is clean and his record is clear. And he says, oh, hey, it wasn't me. Look at the surgeon. They did something. They fell below the standard of care, not me, right? But like I said, it was very strange to me that he was immediately giving statements to the police about malpractice as soon as the police came when Hulk Hogan unfortunately passed away.
By the way, Sky had some comments regarding the police too and whether they may have seemingly messed up the investigation. She said, I know the truth will come out, so I'm sitting back here politely being like everything's being well documented. I know it's fine, but I'm trying to be respectful of the police department because the police department has been very respectful and very thorough. I have cameras in the house. They've looked at all the cameras. They've counted all the medicines. They've done everything that they would normally do. They've seen very clear medical records where it's just completely obvious how things go. They've been very thorough. What do you make of that statement? And by the way, how does the police investigation affect a potential civil case?
So 2 points, right? So sometimes when you have criminal trumps civil cases, sometimes if there's a criminal investigation or there's a criminal lawsuit that's filed in conjunction with a civil lawsuit, the criminal lawsuit, you might get more information, you might get more discovery, and any type of conviction or any type of sentence when it comes to the criminal can have an impact on a civil lawsuit, right? I also think that it's very, very important to note that she is making sure that people know that the police are doing their job, right? There's always a situation when you have a criminal investigation or any type of investigation with a celebrity, you want to make sure that the police are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, as they should be doing it all the time, right? But especially when you're handling something like a celebrity wrongful death or potentially a celebrity, a foul play incident with a celebrity, you want to make sure that you are expressing that the police are doing what they need to do. I think additionally, as I've said before, there's been a lot of public speculation as to what's going on. So it could have been something as simple as, I want to make sure that the people who are following this know that the police are doing what they're supposed to be doing from Sky's standpoint.
And I wanted to ask you about this too. I wanted to ask you about Brooke Hogan, okay? Because this is another layer to this. This is new news that's come out. So it has been reported that she finally was able to see her father's body. Now, this is a daughter who has been reportedly had a strained relationship with her father, but has been quite vocal about his death. And she told TMZ Live more specifically, and also Bubba the Love Sponge radio show, that everything appears to be, quote, on the up and up. This is after viewing his body, saying to Bubba, I was able to see my dad and he looked great. He looked like he was ready for a pay-per-view. He looked like he was ready to go on TV. He was big, strong, hair looking good, bandana on, Fu Manchu going. He looked great, and she said it was awesome to see him. And she confirmed to TMZ that she saw incision scars on his body, which showed an autopsy was in fact performed. And she claimed that she was able to say her final goodbyes. Now, the reason that this is so important is because since her father's death, as I mentioned, she has been quite outspoken regarding questions that she and the family have had. And she had even offered to pay for an autopsy, saying, my dad's dignity and legacy deserves it. She posted on social media in part, quote, fact, I've 100% gotten legit calls from professionals, from police officials to nurses that were supposedly with my dad on the day of his death, telling me I need to see body cam footage and I need to get a hold of the 911 tapes because they supposedly contain information that could potentially shed enough light to change the narrative everyone's been hearing. Those same professionals feel so passionately about what they witnessed, they have continued to contact me and push me to find specific answers to this very day. They are quite literally putting their careers at risk because they feel so compelled to do the right thing. The short of it is, it's all up to my dad's wife and I have zero control. I cannot do anything, my hands are tied, and I have no say in anything regarding my dad, even as his daughter. Those are the rules as I've been told. And also, do I question his general physician signing off on his death certificate given his background, which is available for anyone to see via a simple Google search? You can answer that one for yourself. But now, it seems that Brooke Hogan has been able to get at least some answers, and her reportedly saying this was, quote, very helpful for her, and saying everybody appears to be acting in good faith and doing the right thing. I feel good going home that I got to see my dad. I got to see the autopsy done. I know there's still more investigating to do. From what my heart is telling me, everybody's on the up and up and trying to do their jobs. Now, going back to Skye, she talked about this too, telling the Daily Mail that Brooke had asked her to view her father's body, saying, she sent me a really nice text message that was like, Skye, I've never had a problem with you, and your children are so wonderful and great. But she did say that Brooke did have a chance to view this body earlier. And in regards to reporting that Brooke met with police, Skye apparently said, I'm so grateful she met with police. I'm also grateful Brooke was able to finally see her dad and get the closure that a daughter needs. Alea, back to you. What do you make of that?
I think that it's very clear that behind the scenes, there might have been some my dad versus my husband type of argument between the two, that the statements are very, very particular. And they let me know that, okay, we're great now, but pointing out the fact that Brooke had the opportunity to view her dad and then didn't do it until later. Well, maybe she was either grieving or maybe she wanted to view her dad after she knew that the autopsy had been performed because she was so vocal about wanting that autopsy performed. It seems on the surface that everybody is getting along, right? But the words that in the statement that are used, like Skye bringing up that Brooke had the opportunity to view her dad's body before this and things like that, let me know there might have been some back and forth between the two behind closed doors, right? That we're never going to see, that we're never going to hear about. But it's good to know that there is a positive relationship going forward, especially if we're talking about a medical malpractice lawsuit. The family gets involved. The lawyer for the hospital or the doctors might want to also depose Brooke as a non-party witness, in addition to Skye as the power of attorney who will probably be over the estate. So it's good to know that they have a united front. It seems that everything is fine now. But the statements and the way that they're written definitely let me know there was probably some back and forth conversations that happened that we'll never hear about.
I was going to ask you if you think Brooke Hogan would play a role of some kind in an upcoming lawsuit. Would she be called as a witness? And you're saying there's a possibility.
There's always a possibility. When it comes to the estate and you're unfortunately handling an individual who is no longer with us, you have, normally a spouse, right? If the spouse has been involved in the care of that individual, fine. But I think Skye, I think she's only been married. She was only married to Hulk Hogan in 2022, I believe.
Yeah, I think
so
like 3
assuming,
years,
yeah, I think they're only married for 3 years. So assuming there's a long history of medical issues that Hulk Hogan had, Brooke might have, some detail into that. And we know that they're strained, but it's really just a matter of letting the strategy of the lawyer for the hospital or for the doctors that might say, well, you've been vocal about this, so we want to hear what you have to say in an actual deposition.
Well, I don't know exactly what she saw or what she might have been looking for and got this sense of, obviously, I'm not talking about emotional closure. That's a totally different scenario. But I think she seemed, based on the comments, reassured that an autopsy was performed. And she seemed reassured about looking at his body and the shape of the body and how he appeared. But I don't know if it necessarily negates what Skye may be claiming, right? There could have been damage, potentially, to this nerve that maybe was the cause of death if you take these allegations as true. And again, there's no lawsuit yet. But I don't know if Brooke's conclusions, based on this limited interview or interviews, wouldn't necessarily hurt or help Skye's claims. I'm not exactly sure.
No, so sometimes when I say meant using Brooke as a non-party witness, they might have questions about, very simple questions about Hulk Hogan's health history, to the extent that did you know that your father had cancer? Did you know what medications your father was taking? Did you know about any of his treatment? Did you know any of his doctors? Things like that, really to just get some information as far as what she might have known. And again, it's a strategy standpoint, right? There might be individuals who are closer to Hulk Hogan's actual medical treatment that are better witnesses. But sometimes I know that from a strategy standpoint, there are lawyers who will use the family members as non-party witnesses to see what other information they might have or may be able to contribute.
Well, we will continue to follow it. Alea, you've been with me for, I think, both Hulk Hogan episodes. Let's see what happens. If there's a lawsuit, maybe we'll break it down together. We shall see. But we're still in the early stages, and we're just wishing for the family to have peace. And I know this is the grieving time, and having a spotlight on all this and questions doesn't make it easy. But look, this is the situation we're running into. There's something going on here, and we're just trying to figure it out. Alea Roberts, thank you so much for taking the time. It was great seeing you.
Thank you, Jesse.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.